We're talking about like racism and stuff like that. One thing I always find when I'm having conversations about free speech, if I say to someone we should have free speech and there shouldn't be any real limitations, they would say, well, what about hate speech? So I always find that's a tricky one to come back at, like to have any response to that. So should we allow hate speech? And if we should, or if we shouldn't rather, is there a line to be drawn there? Because I think that's the
Right.
trouble with this conversation. We don't know where the line
It
is, and
is.
it
And
has
it's
to keep moving.
right. And it's complicated. Look, and here's what I'll
Mhm.
say. I mean, here also, please understand, I'm talking from the United States, and there's a different
Yeah,
constitutional tradition. You guys in the UK, you don't even have a constitution, not a written
yeah,
one. Um, uh, and in the United States, hate speech is protected. Okay. There's amazing ignorance on this subject, even among students of law, by the way. I've had law
right.
students tell me, well, of course, hate speech is not protected under the Constitution. I'm like, dude, if you want to say it shouldn't be, let's have that conversation. That's totally fine.
Mm,
But if you want to say it isn't, that's like saying one and one is three. Like, that's just wrong.
yeah,
So the real question is, should it be? And I do believe it should. And here's why. Um, I don't want the state deciding what's hateful and what isn't, because I don't trust the state enough to make that determination in a fair and equitable way. The other thing that I know is once the state starts engaging in censorship, it's people at the bottom that will be screwed over, not people at the top. That's another theme of my book.
yeah.
Um, uh, and so, there's enormous hubris in this movement to restrict hate speech because it imagines that there's going to be some great Solon, some great seer who will somehow be able to determine with perfect accuracy what is hateful and what is not. And when Trump was still president and my students would plead for bans on hate speech, I'd be like, so who do you want to decide what's hateful? How about Trump? I know you're into him. Do you want to empower Trump's government to decide what hate speech is? I don't. Um, Look, there's a lot of hate out there, but there's also legitimate questions about what's hateful and what isn't. And I don't want to empower the state to make those judgments.
And so you
And
mentioned
by the way, that
government.
isn't
Sorry,
to
go on.
say that, just to be very clear, I want to be really clear, right? Just because I don't think the state should fight hate speech, I'm not saying we shouldn't. Of course we should.
Mm,
And here's the other thing I want to emphasize. Raising your voice against hate speech is a form of free speech. And I think a hugely important and consequential one. So I'm not making a plea for passivity here. I'm not trying to deny the presence of hate speech, and I'm not saying we should just roll over and ignore it. Quite the contrary. What I'm saying is the solution to it lies with you and me and raising our voices. It does not lie with the state. I don't trust the state that much.